Hello and welcome to Better Business Podcast. My name is Alexei. As always, bringing you interesting guests, making sure I ask them all the right questions to make things interesting for you. So if you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, whichever platform, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and come back with any feedback using comments to make sure that we understand that you understand and like what we are presenting you with. So today I have got an interesting guest from a company called the RTO Mentor, but don't be misled by that. She does a lot more than just that. Merinda Smith. Merinda, how you going there?
Hi, Alexei. Great to see you online.
Yeah.
And I must say, I haven't seen you for years, so it's awesome to connect with you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, to be honest, and I must say time really flies. Merinda and I met quite a while back. We did the same course and had the same coach for about a year or so, and I really connected with Merinda. So I definitely recommend the business coaching and personal development from the perspective of meeting people, because I have got a lot out of working with Merinda. She's quite inspiring, and we've had quite a bit of an accident with Merinda at one stage. We actually went to play golf as a group, and something's happened, but I won't take it away. I think we might come back to this story. I just want to make sure that we keep this real, personal, and relatable as well. Anyway, Merinda, tell us about RTO Mentor. Tell us about that coaching and how that worked for you. And we'll come back to the story about the golf ball in a minute.
Okay, thank you. So I've been in the training space for many years, and I think it was like 16 years ago I decided, and after managing many RTOs, I decided that I would become an RTO consultant. When I became a consultant, though, I was out there by myself doing it solo, and you think you can do everything, because I'd managed some massive RTOs and I did that really well. Yet there's so much more to having your own business, and you're no longer just that manager. You are a marketer, you're a bookkeeper, you're a absolutely everything, as well as doing what you do best. And interestingly, as a manager, you have staff to do a lot of your work for you. But when you go out as a consultant, you're the one doing it as well. So I joined a business coaching group, and as Alexei said, as you say, that for me, it was just instrumental to be part of a business coaching group. And so, yeah, I've had my consulting business for 16 years. It's grown, it's shrunk because of various lifestyle things. Basically, I work with RTOs, registered training organizations now. And I help them to set up an RTO to meet the compliance needs, because it's regulated. And I also am a business coach helping, and I specifically niche into the RTO world. But I have worked across many small businesses as a business coach, helping people look at all the aspects of their business.
Cool. I think that business coach is one of those things that could be a little bit scary for a lot of businesses to get engaged in. But personally, I think that a lot of the time we are just not capable of changing things ourselves fast enough. And for me, the motivation to look for a business coach and engage Anthea, and hi Anthea, in case you're listening, was that I actually proposed to my wife 4 months beforehand, and I really didn't know cash flow wise how I would, make it to our day of the wedding, financially ready without actually turning things around in my business. So that was my motivation, and things that worked exceptionally well in the sense that Anthea taught me how to sell and really understand my customers a lot better from the selling point perspective. But also at the same time, I think having a community of like-minded business owners, all at different stages of their business journeys in their lives, has actually gave me some reassurance that, hey, I actually was doing okay, and I wasn't the only one. Because I think one of the biggest fears for a lot of business owners to end up as this person where there's something wrong with you, and you think, hey, I don't want to do this because there's something wrong with me. Well, there's nothing wrong with you, but there's a better way to do what you do right now. But I'm sure, Merinda, you probably have accumulated all this knowledge into your own processes now, because you do business coaching, and it'd be interesting to find out more about that. But let's just tap on that golf ball situation, because I think
you're desperate to go there.
we've intrigued our listeners enough, I think. So what happened there? Tell us.
So Anthea has these, she coached us online, and she also had quarterly get-togethers. So I went over to Brisbane to be with all these amazing people, and we were together for a week, I think. We did it regularly. This particular one, every time we got together, there was always some team building activity, and this particular activity was playing golf. So I think in my business, and I just want to go back to that, I was being very strong-minded and going, I need to do it this way. And even though my coach was saying maybe something else and suggesting some other ways, I was being strong-minded. Anyway, so we went to this golf day. I'm not a golf player. I don't do golf. So I decided I would sit in the cart with Anthea, and we were chatting away. And next minute, was it your golf ball?
No, it came from another course altogether.
That's yeah. Anyway, I was hit in the head with a golf ball as I was sitting in the cart. So that was, emergency stations, ice, and I think cocktails afterwards to get over it. And I realized, so it was a big thing at the time, as in it hurt, yet it also was a pattern awareness for me that the universe does things if I'm not listening, then it has to get my attention in some way. And that was its way of getting my attention. So, yes, I listened then.
Well, it's quite interesting. These are the moments that you definitely don't forget. And I think a lot of the time people do need something like that in their life, or maybe it's one of those things that has to happen in order for something to start changing. So look, something that's definitely been a bit of a highlight, and I'm glad it obviously all ended well, because it looked pretty bad. I think everyone was really scared when the whole thing occurred. But look, fast forward to 2024, where you are right now. How has all this knowledge and all these programs that you've done, because no doubt you obviously invest quite a fair bit in personal development and coaching, how has this all helped you sort of define your business today?
I continue to have a business coach, and the reason is I took a few years off of not having a business coach, and I thought, and I've been business coaching other people, and I tell them all the benefits of having it, and yet I wasn't having a coach myself. And only at the end of last year did I engage in another coach again after a few years off. And having a business coach is someone who can look at your business and you from a third-party perspective and see things in a different light to help you and guide you to make decisions on your business. And so for me, it is just so valuable to for instance, my website, it was old. I started it in 2009, I think, and it sort of had grown, it'd become mishmash. And, when I took on this new coach, he said to me, it's just terrible. And I hadn't even seen it. It was just the way it was. And in the previous years, I'd had compliments on it. People had rung me and going, I love how simple your website is. It's really easy to navigate. So I just thought that's how it is. Yet it had become really clunky. So now it's a lot fresher, and you can see my logo up there, which we worked on together. And it was just to refresh my brand and totally refresh who I am. And I feel much better for it. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, look, I think rebranding and having a fresh start is definitely very important. I think a lot of the time having a new brand actually does create a bit of a breath of fresh air as a message to the followers or potentially people who have been working with the business. Well, let's talk about the RTOs. Let's talk about the business coaching from your perspective now. Yep. I find that there's obviously quite a few trends or patterns that businesses experience, regardless whether they're RTO or not. So what's trending right now? What are you mainly getting, business owners and RTO owners, contact you about? Where do they need help?
Yeah, so I'll push the compliance side aside. In the business coaching side, people, because an RTO is compliance driven, And so they have regulators that come and audit them. So there's always this need to have things compliant. And it means that there's a lot of boxes that are ticked. And so often RTO owners or leaders, managers, are constantly head down into that compliance. And they don't step out and look at their business. So they're not looking at it, their business from their students' perspective, so their clients' perspective, or if students are part of industry, part of a workforce, they're not looking at it from the workforce perspective and how and communicating with them. They're not marketing well, they're not getting their message out well. And also it's their systems within their business. So because it is so compliance driven, and there are meant to be systems, it gets clunky though. A bit like my website. It starts off simple, and then over the years it gets really clunky, and you've got these systems that are really, just so not efficient. So that is where I come in and I look at it, their business, from that third party perspective and from being knowledgeable in that industry, and suggest different ways. And one of the things that I have been looking at and working with people recently is using offshore staffing. Because often RTOs, and especially since COVID, they've had to streamline things. And so they might have let go of some staff. And so that puts pressure on the existing staff. And so I have been helping RTOs with getting offshore staffing. And that can be in a variety of ways. So years ago, when I was getting, recruited my own offshore staff, it was for marketing, for doing my own marketing, or for doing my website, or along those, creating a brand or something like that. So now offshore staffing is way more than that, and especially in the RTO space, there are RTO specialists who can help you. So it's a really interesting way of looking at your business and helping people with their systems and efficiencies.
Okay. Well, I think, offshore staff is definitely quite a trend at the moment, given the fact that we've got shortages of staff across various industries in Australia. And I think it's obviously a lot more complicated than it seems, but we obviously won't go into it, because I think that sort of ties into economy and politics, which is unfortunately or fortunately not my area of expertise. But I think, for small business, I can certainly relate to the fact that processes are not really designed for scalability. Because one thing that I've learned by working with, various mentors, is that you need to get yourself, to a business that basically is scalable. And what that basically means is that your process actually allow you to bypass a certain point, or basically get you to where you want to be. Because frankly, once you hit that capacity, your business just cannot develop any further. And then you've got, the churn rates, the drop-offs, or you've got potentially people burning out, or your systems are just not efficient enough. We're talking, either processes or the actual physical systems that would be used. Is that what you're experiencing as well a lot of the time?
Absolutely, yeah. And also, along with that scalability is thinking about your business and its sellability. So if someone's going to come in and buy your business, then you need to have, you want to be able to share with them, with the potential owner, and it just gives you so much more potential for negotiation, is the systems that you've got in place. And if you've got some really good systems, then that is so worth spending money on.
Absolutely. Well, I guess when it comes to the whole exit strategy, that does put things in another perspective. And I think what I've learned is that by assuming the fact that you want to evaluate your business to sell, you actually can look at it from a perspective of value. Because oftentimes a business is structured purely around the business owner, and then without the business owner, you really cannot survive.
Yes.
And if you look at the business, without the business owner, the value of the business is next to nothing.
Yep.
So your list, the size of your database, your processes, your I guess intellectual property are all the things that really contribute to the brand. But at the same time, I guess it really comes down to the overall strategy. I find that in our space, when it comes to things like marketing and advertising, oftentimes businesses are being bought with a condition of 2-year transition, and this
Yeah.
is where the company that's basically buying is able to actually come in and implement a lot of the processes, and they mainly do it purely based on the clientele. So in the digital marketing and advertising space, specifically when we're talking about giant clients, it's very difficult to pitch into those areas. We typically get offers from other companies wanting to buy us purely based on the customers, so they can actually work with them. Anyway, a little bit off topic there, but it may be generally good information for some people. So what else? What else is happening within the RTO market? I mean, there's just so many organizations. I mean, how do they set themselves apart? I mean, have you got any tips for businesses to, I don't know, differentiate themselves specifically if they're an RTO?
Yeah, it's about that niche. And really, when I'm working with businesses, when they're setting up their RTO, it is about finding their niche. Sometimes I have people come to me and they go, well, I'm a first aid trainer and that is my niche, and I'll deliver training to absolutely anyone. And that is a really small marketplace. And then there's the others that they have a really specific niche and they know it, they know the industry, they know their clients, and they know exactly what they need. And so they're putting training on scope that is specific to those clients. And so that is what I mean, you've got large RTOs and you've got small RTOs, and the small ones, they need to focus on their niche. And, in training, it's across, it could be in community services, it could be in mining, it could be in project management. It just is a huge variety of areas. It can be in arboriculture.
Great. Well, absolutely. I think niching is the way to go. In my last episode, I was talking about reviewing your, marketing strategy, because I find that a lot of the time people basically start with one angle or one process, and then they just want to use that forever. And oftentimes what happens is you may get to a certain point and then you plateau. So I hear from a lot of, colleges and a few people, and look, we talk to them about things like CRMs and so on. So they do sort of think about processes, but essentially you hit a point where, hey, this is our optimal rate. We can't get any more. We can't get any less. And I found from my perspective, it's about things like, the size of the market, the problems that you're solving, potentially, being ahead of the game by, doing things like, waiting lists, or potentially doing things ahead of time. Because a lot of the time people are like, hey, I'm wanting to do a course in advance, but I don't know what I don't know. But a lot of businesses aren't really addressing that. They just address people who are pretty much ready to go right now and sign them up for the next, let's say, 2 semesters, and that's it.
And they wait for people to ring and, to book in that way. Yet if you're going out there and you're being active and talking to your clients, then you actually understand what your clients' needs are. And it's interesting, you were talking about signing students up for 2 semesters. Well, maybe students don't want a 2-semester course or a 12-month course to complete a full qualification. Maybe they want to do it in small chunks, which is called, it could be like in skill sets, as they're called. So, it could be that the RTO can chunk down the training to give people some training so they can go out and apply it in the workplace. And then, the others come back at a later time to build upon that, that scaffolding effect.
Okay. So if an RTO, I guess, I know managers would like to sort of discuss how to approach the scalability perspective, is that something that you can help with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So what would be your approach to something like that?
So it's looking at the whole business. So whenever I go into a business coaching, it's, a new business, it's about, okay, who are you? Who's your market? Who do you serve? And what is going on? And then we look at, the systems, and usually at that point you find that it is very clunky or there aren't any. And so that's where you start looking at that. And for me, it is those systems. It's building on those systems and those processes to make sure that they can be scalable. And, and it's something that when people, sadly, when you're in a business and you do things every day, you forget that you need to record what you're doing or make a really simple procedure so others can follow it and it can be built up.
Okay, cool. Look, yeah, I think RTO is such a big space, and a lot of people think, colleges and your TAFEs and so on. But I have come across some very interesting businesses that have got an element of RTO to it. Anything from working at heights to helicopter licenses, out of all things, as well. And I think it's really interesting to understand that a lot of the time there could be programs to actually support many businesses. And I actually find that some businesses become an RTO over time as well. So what would you recommend businesses that obviously do a fair bit of training and education to become an RTO? Is there a trend? Is there some sort of support or incentives that basically people are missing out on by potentially not looking into something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the businesses that are already working with the clients, they're training those clients. Often their clients will say, do you offer a statement of attainment or a nationally recognised qualification? And so it often comes from that industry. So you talked about working at heights. That is a mandatory requirement to get a statement of attainment. So then you can get that accreditation to, or not necessarily working at heights, but some of the other high risk, like forklift and that sort of thing, they are mandatory. So there's an industry requirement. Working at heights is an industry requirement. So that is where there is a strong need when industry are looking for that nationally recognised training. And so in childcare, for instance, there's a need in that industry to have the Cert 3 and the diploma if you're supervising, leading others. In mining, there's the supervisor's qualification, and the list goes on. It's huge. They're just an example. So if people are in a specific area that they are training and there is no need by industry to get a nationally recognised training or certificate, then they can continue to operate as trainers and not be RTOs. But you must be an RTO if you're offering that certificate.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's certainly another avenue. And I just find that sometimes there are so many various incentives and opportunities that basically come off ventures like that. But anyway, it's something for our listeners, I guess, worth exploring.
Oh, you did ask about incentives, and there are always government incentives for when you are an RTO. So depending on the area that you're in. So sometimes there's a wait period of 2 years, depending on the state government you're working under, before you can actually claim those. So you need to be operating as an RTO before you can claim them.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are government incentives in that sense as well.
Okay. Bit of a general question, if I may. What's going on with staff? Where is everybody? Why are we having so many shortages when it comes to, I don't know, construction? There's just so many niches. Where are all these people? I mean, from your perspective in dealing with RTOs that obviously provide training and deal with thousands of people, what's happening with the staff situation in Australia? Where are those resources?
The resources were coming from offshore and coming into Australia for the big paying jobs, mainly mines. And so what happened over COVID was, this is what I'm understanding, is the offshore people weren't allowed into Australia and got shipped out. And so the mines were recruiting local people. So where people were in the TAFEs, in the RTOs as trainers and assessors, they went left and went and worked for the mines. And the mines pay better. It's harder life because it's fly in, fly out often, and it's long shifts, yet the money was the incentive for these people. People are now obviously allowed back into Australia, and they are moving, those skilled people into those roles. But we're still finding in the training industry that trainers and assessors aren't coming back to the roles that they once were. So I'm not sure where they are. And that's why we're looking, offshore for staffing.
Yeah. Look, I would actually agree with that because I have actually met a few people while flying, where you'd be sitting next to a person and like, hey, I'm flying to Australia to work at the mines, and they would do something so niche that
Yeah.
apparently, it's very difficult to find that in Australia. And the person's like, hey, I'm arriving in Brisbane, and next day I'm flying to like Mount Isa or something, and I'll be
Yeah.
there for the next, 3 years. It's like, well, the person's never been in Australia, and they're coming to that role. And a lot of the time, yes, it's about financial incentives. So I can certainly see from what you're saying how this has reshaped the economy and where a lot of people have just gone for the opportunities that have come up. But yeah, obviously, I do hope that this obviously changes because, frankly, with my situation, I'm a father of 3 kids. Every time I go into childcare, there are shortages. Every week we'd get an email saying, "Hey, if you can keep your child at home," and you know it's fascinating from a human perspective. I get it, but from the perspective of a parent, where we pay ridiculous amounts to have our kids at childcare, yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. Anyway, I'm liking this conversation, Merinda. This really opens up for quite a few different avenues. But anyway, let's get back to your business coaching. So when it comes to, I guess, business wanting to work with you, how do they approach you? Where would you normally start, and what sort of problems would definitely be on their radar in order to approach you?
So I have offer a 30-minute get to know me session. So that's via Zoom. And I always recommend that people connect with me on that 30-minute session. And that way we get to know one another. And then we realize, whether we could be a good fit for one another and work together for the long term, because it's not a short-term gig, it's a long-term gig. So it's at least 6 months or 3 to 6 months that we work together, and depending on what you're doing. And so, and then from then, once they've decided that's how they want to go, then it's the process, like I said, it's starting at looking at the big perspective and then drilling down and looking at everything and working together. And I am a mentor, so I'm not doing stuff for them. I help them, I support them, I mentor them, and a coach, and look at areas, and I will support them in areas, do some things, yet it's about them. It's about, for me, it's about getting people to understand how they can support themselves and their business moving forward.
Cool. Well, look, one thing I do in my podcast is a section called Rapid Fire. This is where I ask you a fairly, specific question. I just want a quick answer. Are you ready?
Yep.
What's your favorite place for holiday?
I love Albany. Albany is on the south coast of Western Australia. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just chill out time down there. So in my own homeland.
Cool. What's your favorite personal development book?
I hate these questions. I read all sorts and I listen to podcasts, so I don't have one specific. There you go.
Is there something that's made an impact on you? I mean, surely there would have been something that you read and is like, hey, this is...
I've got here Quiet Leadership beside me by David Rock, and it's actually a book. And the reason it's on my desk is because I picked it up the other day to just check in on something. So it's a book that I've had for many years. I look at it and I just check in with things. So yeah, there you go. Quiet Leadership, David Rock.
Cool. Well, I'm listening on audio on Audible to a book called The Business of Belonging at the moment, and it's really more about creating communities. And look, I'll talk about it, I guess, in another podcast. But I think it's very important to keep developing, just to have ideas, coming into mind and being able to reflect them as well. Anyway, yes. Last question: your favorite sport? Surely it's not golf, right?
No, I ride horses, so wow. I love my ponies.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, cool. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our listeners, or is there anything else you'd like to share about, I guess, your business, or I guess working with a business coach?
No, just if anyone's interested in the world of RTOs, in registered training organizations, and they're thinking they want to set one up, then give me a call. And I offer that free 30-minute contact. And you can contact me on my website, rtomentor.com.au, or LinkedIn.
Sounds good. Well, Merinda, thanks very much for jumping on the call. I really enjoyed having this conversation, having you on my podcast. For our listeners, look, make sure you reach out and ask questions, because I think asking a question will get you further on your business journey by getting an answer. At the end of the day, if you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. That is my philosophy when it comes to things like that. Make sure you share these episodes with anyone who may benefit from them, because I think. A podcast is probably the easiest way for people to learn. And personally, if you're finding that time is a bit of an issue, try to change the playback speed. I listen to my audio books and podcasts at 1.5, which initially sounds a little bit strange, but over a while you get used to it, and it actually allows you to get through books 50% faster. So anyway, that's my trick for you guys. Merinda, once again, thanks very much. And yeah, look, thanks for listening, and I hope to speak to you soon.